Welcome. In this episode we're doing something a little bit different. We're looking at the content that is being released for free in January for the Epic marketplace. So these are the 6 assets that are available now. We have the Viz AI over here, which is the one that's permanently put into the free collection, and then we have these other 5 that are part of the monthly free collection. And everything you need to do is just add this to your cart and buy them within quotation marks, and you'll get them for free. So let's look a little bit closer at these different assets. Before we continue with the video, if you like what I'm doing here on this channel, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel a lot. Anyway, let's get back to the video. So this is the first pack, which contains a lot of braziers and lamps and general fire and light related objects. So these are like lanterns and braziers and everything related to that. There is around 195 models, I believe, for you to make use of here. And this is what they look like. And they all look like to be in fine quality when it comes to both their models and their textures. And you can see that there are a lot of variations, so you can get something that doesn't look samey all over the place. So in addition to all of these models, you also have a blueprints folder here where you have some pre-made blueprints. You can see how you can put these things together. So you have a static mesh over here for one of the torches. It consists in this case of a point light to give some light off, which we can see over here in the demo scene. It has this like distorted effect, which is partly made possible because of this particle effect that's also included here for the fire. And this is a cascade particle effect, not a Niagara particle effect, just something to keep in mind. So here you have 3 different examples of how you could put these items together to make some kind of lamp from this dungeon lamp pack. Next up we have the VFX bundle 2 here, which consists of a couple of different catalogs. So you have one here which is consisting of a lot of different leaf related particle effects. To note here also, none of these are Niagara, they're all cascade. And they look pretty nice. They are fairly simplistic. If you click on one of these particle effects, you can see that they're just billboards of these textures that are slowly falling around. And there are different variations of these. You have some like with wind over here. These ones I'm not a huge fan of because you can see how they're falling towards the ground, and then when they land on the ground they sort of shuffle around in a sort of weird way, but I'm sure that can be cleaned up with not too much effort. But yeah, so this is the grass portion of this particle effect pack. Next in this pack we see this snow effect that's available. So you have both the snowing effect in the form of the particle system here, and there's also something to sell the scene a little bit with some ground that looks like there's snow between the cobblestones and this statue as well. Next up in this system pack you have some particle effects for lightning. You can see flashing around a little bit, and there's supposed to be rain here, although we can't really see much particles and they seem to be going upwards instead of downwards. Here's supposed to be heavy rain. Not super obvious what is happening here because the particles are really small. Over here you can see some of the shadows of the yellow that are falling down. Here we have another form of rain, that's probably light rain. We have some rain that's windy. And some negative rain, whatever that is. That's probably rain that doesn't have a very positive attitude. And yeah, so you have different forms of rain and stuff like that. And also bubbles apparently here. And in addition to that, you also have dynamic weather here, it says. So if we press play, it's supposed to do something, I suppose, although I don't really see much happening over here. But if you follow along to these other parts, you can see that we have drips on surface, translucent, there's a bunch of different ones here. And you can see the effects on the screen and on the floor. And very furthest to the right here we have a screen distortion post-process underwater effect, but we can't run on top of it because it has collision, but if we go under it, so this is what we get. So that's what's available in this specific map in the pack. And lastly you have a grouping for GPU particles. So these particle effects, and they're again cascade, probably gonna be quite lightweight for your computer to handle. You see there's a different variety of these, looking very cosmos-like and ethereal. So there's a nice variety of different ways that they have made use of these particle effects for you to play around with if you feel like this is what you're interested in. Next up is the Winter Forest asset pack. And this is the demo scene that shows what kind of assets it contains. So you can see that you have a snowing particle effect, you have some meshes of rocks and shrubberies, small bushes, some trees. Not sure what this is supposed to be, coastline maybe. And then you have some water plains, and you also have a little bit of a landscape over here of snow. Putting all of those assets together, then this is the kind of scene that you can create. So this is the demonstration map of what it looks like when they're using all of their assets available. You can see it gives a pretty convincing forests with snow look and feel here. It has a lot of variation from quite few assets, to be honest. So it's looking pretty nice. Next up, we have the asset for modular armor. It is quite a surprising pack to get actually, because it is quite heavily priced on the marketplace normally. So this is one that you for sure would like to pick up, I think. And it consists of a grouping of different clothing options. So you have like different forms of bracers, some cloaks, you have some robes, you have some shoulders or pauldrons over here in this section, and finally you have some gloves. And to get an example or an idea how that works, if you press play, you get introduced with this widget, which allows you to run around with this character and change some of the different items that you want to use here. So if we can see that there are a bunch of different cloaks available, and we can also make use of checking out different pauldrons. We can have different robes. There's a large variety of all of them. And we also have bracers, although that's difficult to see with the robes on. So here we can see, well, so we need gloves off, like so. Bracers. So there's some ornamental that looks more like jewelry, and there are larger ones that are actually looking like protective armor. So yeah, together with gloves, robes, shoulders, and or cloaks. Some of the cloaks don't work with shoulders, so they get deactivated sometimes, but yeah, you can just play around with these different options, of course. And then you can also add helmets and apparently pants. If we make the robes go away, we can see that the pants are showing up here, and we also have boots. We can have a default chest as well. And then you have a randomizer if you want to get a feel of how many different variations you can get. So this is for sure a very interesting pack and can give you a lot of mileage for it, because you can make a lot of different variations for characters, making it look like they are unique individuals in a game. So I highly recommend you picking this one up. Next up, we have the procedural level generator. And here you can see what that kind of looks like. This one isn't as straightforward as the other assets, because this one is a little bit more complex. But you do have a trailer and the documentation available for this asset down here on the page for it. This is what it looks like when you're starting in. And essentially in here you have one key blueprint, the world generator over here, that has a bunch of variables and things exposed for you to change around, so you can have your world behaving differently when it generates. So this is the key blueprint, and this is how it starts out. Now when you start this level, you are going to fall through the world here, because there is a start over here and it has some geometry next to it, but the geometry doesn't have collisions on it. So if you want to, you can go to the actual geometry and make sure that it has collisions enabled. So add a simplified box collision and save, and then we can check what it looks like. You can see that it has these green borders now, so we have the collision. So now if we press play, we're gonna fall into the box. And essentially what's happening here is it's loading in the level for you, so you're in that state until the loading is done, and then you get thrown into the level. So it doesn't really matter if you have collision or not, you're just gonna be falling through the world. But this is essentially what it looks like. So you have this character that you can run around with, and you have these different walls that can connect you to different areas that are generated. You can also traverse using teleporters in different areas. And this is the basic setup of it to begin with, without any alterations. And yeah, that's essentially what that asset looks like. Last, well, also technically first, since I started mentioning this, but definitely not least, in the free forever category, we have this AI framework. It looks quite interesting. It seems to have a lot of templates and things in place already for allowing you to start off with AI and not having to do a lot of the grunt work, the basic things. So there's a bunch of different templates, I think, expensive templates here. So they have some for combat, I noticed. So ranged AI combat templates, melee, and they have these fancy slideshows showing how this one is supposed to be awesome and working. Although I haven't been able to spend any time with this one yet, I'm looking forward to checking this one out as well. And if it's really interesting, I'll make a follow-up video on this, because I've done a lot of videos on AI previously. This might be a very handy thing to continue with on in the going forward. So for that reason, I believe it's very good if you pick this one up as well. I believe you should pick up all of the assets, of course, but there are some that are more useful than others, I believe. Probably. I can't say for sure, but probably. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you did not like it, leave a dislike. Leave any suggestions or comments you have down below. Subscribe and share this video if you want to see more like it in the future. That is all for now. Keep on learning. Take care.